We leverage our power by making our bosses fear us. Yeah, that's about right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Red Blue Table Talk. I am Dr. Lamia Jenkins Thompson, and I will be moderating this exciting panel discussion with some of the most influential women in politics and corporate America. We also have a special Red Blue Table Talk special guest appearance by the Honorable Ayanna Pressley, who represents the 5th Congressional District of Massachusetts. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We want to, of course, thank everyone who wrote in and sent in questions. We appreciate your support. We won't be able to get to all the questions today, as obviously, you know, we have limited time and these fabulous ladies have so much information to share, but we appreciate your support and participation. The number of women running Fortune 500 companies has hit a new record. According to this year's Fortune 500 list, currently there are 37 women leading Fortune 500 firms, an increase from last year's 33 women, which at the time was a record high. This new addition of women is the result of several leadership changes in companies that previously made the list, in which women have taken over from a male predecessor, as well as companies that are passing the billion-dollar revenue threshold to make that list this year. While this year has been full of challenges and pivots, it has been historic for Black women. We now have our first female Vice President-elect, Kamala Harris, demonstrating to all women that we are owning our seat at the table. However, while this is an incremental victory in the right direction, there's still so much progress to be made. That's why today we are here with our esteemed panelists to show how we navigate these ever-changing landscapes and environments in politics and corporate America to success, and how they're bringing others along on their journey. All of the women before us today, including our special guests, have made incredible strides in their respective worlds and careers. They are the true essence of brilliance behind the deals being brokered on Capitol Hill and across America. Now let's get to know our panelists a little bit better. Shatrina Thomas was a former chief of staff whose responsibilities were lobbying the White House, the U.S. Senate, the United States Court of Appeals of the 11th Circuit, while securing a seat for her boss on the Ways and Means Committee for an African-American woman with a voice from the Southeast region of America. She coordinated the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act and secured appropriations for the historic walk in Selma. As the Bloody Sunday March with Congressman John Lewis, she helped to organize many more events and scales to great heights. During her tenure as a Capitol Hill staffer, she passed more than 200 bipartisan amendments, countless bills, and secured $1 billion in federal appropriations, and was an immigration lobbyist. She's currently the Chief Growth Officer at Versa Technologies. Let's welcome Shatrina.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Stacey Barton began her career with Eleanor Holmes Norton. She built a women-owned consulting firm and became the chief of staff to a mayor who later became an outstanding member of Congress. She's currently chief of staff for Congressman Steve Chabot. Let's welcome Stacey. Hello. Charlene Stanberry beat the odds and used her knowledge and capital to position Representative Yvette Clarke as the vice chairwoman of the Energy and Commerce Committee. And today she serves as the Congresswoman's chief of staff. Let's welcome Charlene.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Charlene.
Tammy Buckner Jackson started lobbying at age 24 for DuPont, and since then, never actively looked for a job. I need to take some tips from her. Craft, Coca-Cola, Waste Management, and is now a partner at Michael Best Strategies. Let's welcome Tammy.
Okay.
Hey, Tammy. And last but not least, Tracy, you are not only a chief of staff, but also at the same time, the director of the chair's office at the Democratic National Committee. You were the senior policy advisor in the Florida State Legislature and worked for Nancy Pelosi when she was the minority leader the first time, becoming chief of staff to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So your trajectory has also been amazing. Let's welcome Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Hello, Tracy.
Hello.
I would say all of you are women trailblazers. You are champions and probably, quite honestly, the best kept secret on Capitol Hill. I think you're the next CEOs of America and maybe even presidents. Speaking of America, during this pandemic, American women are not only losing their jobs faster than men, but they're also losing their jobs at a time when they're trying to manage childcare, their households, and their own emotional well-being. With more women shattering glass ceilings on Capitol Hill and in corporate America, it is our duty to create a more equitable, inclusive, and fulfilling opportunities for women everywhere. This includes having a post-COVID-19 workplace leader supporting women at every level and to continue the advancement of women in the workplace. So I want to talk to this group about what are your thoughts on using your influence to navigate in corporate America today to build those bridges of success to African American women all around. I'll take some time to ask each of the panelists a question, but I just want you guys to be thinking about that as we navigate through this conversation. So Tammy, I'll start with you. You have and continue to master corporate America. In doing so, how would you explain how one can be powerful without alienating people, without making people uncomfortable? What if people are unhappy with you? How do you prove yourself in a male-dominated company that you have the leaderships and steps to move your career forward or anyone's career forward? I think many of the firms in DC, right, are predominantly male-dominated and white male-dominated. So how have you taken on that career journey?
Well, thank you, Dr. Thompson. And we should take a pause first and celebrate you and your leadership role, because if anyone in this panel, I say that you have reached great height and working in an area that is brand new for everyone. So congratulations to you. And as far as a master, how you're describing it, I think of myself as not anything close to that. I have a lot of masters around me, and I'm always trying to be that person in training. I think I look at my life as always life in training. In corporate America, I was blessed, really, really blessed to have amazing women around me, amazing men, no matter the color, around me, taking initiative to make sure that I was properly suited and taken care of from day one. I was very young when I came into this field, so I was needing as many mentors as possible. I don't know if it's my generation, but Shar is just like me. So, and she's much younger, and she resembles me in so many ways. She takes a lot of advice, chops it up, and make it her own. And I think that's what I did. And I love making friends along the way. I think business is about friends, about making friends. And so to answer a lot of those questions into one, I would just say, always look at every opportunity as an opportunity to continue to train, to continue to learn. I took my corporate approach that way. When I saw corporate leaders, it was an abundance and amount of corporate leaders, like at Coca-Cola. Each one of them, if they didn't see me, it was odd because they sought me out first. When I landed there, it was a group of African American women who showed up at my doorstep, and these were senior individuals to say, how can we help you be successful? And they stayed on me. They weren't easy, but they were very proud to have somebody in the government affairs office. I can say that was with many of the corporate offices. And if they didn't see me, I was going to find them. So I would suggest anyone to knock on doors, no matter the race or color. It just depends on, I think, your access. And I think many people love giving advice and counsel and having someone to shepherd through the process. So I think you should seek anyone out. And that's what I did.
That's amazing. I mean, access is so important. Knocking on those doors, making sure that you have mentors, surrounding yourself with incredible people that help to shepherd your journey. And obviously, to your point, making friends along the way. I mean, that's sure. Critical to anyone's success, I think, in the corporate world or in the political world.
Absolutely. And then just to pivot on the Hill, you see these women that's on this panel today. If it wasn't for people in place on Capitol Hill with those leadership positions like Tracy, like Stacey, I remember when we first all got here, and we have been here for a while now, but we all supported each other, and it was a great thing that we did. The funny thing about it is we didn't even know that we were being so collaborative. We were just naturally friends and supporting each other until somebody started putting a label on it, and we became a network of good friends and people that supported each other. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Shatrina has felt the same way, and also Stacey.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, it's such a sisterhood.
Yeah. People fail to realize we're actually family. And sometimes it takes us years to realize that. But I can't recall how many times I've called on Stacy, Tammy, Tracy, and Char. When we can't get away for the holidays, we're spending holidays together. We're doing, Thanksgiving dinner to get together. And this is an awesome group. And I am just so grateful to be in this type of sisterhood. So I thank everyone who's here today.
And I'm the little sister. I'm the little sister that gets to benefit from all of this.
Hey, that's a win.
So I'm
You all know
ecstatic
that
all the time.
Shatrina will force you into a crowded elevator. If she's got something she wants to talk to you about, you got to ride up to wherever she's going for her to talk to you, and then she drops you off on another floor.
Yeah. And Stacey, then she comes back for you. And then
Yeah.
I learned all this from Tracy. I learned it all from Tracy.
No, you didn't learn that from me, but I will say you learned your persistence from me, and that is that's how I would define if there was one word to define Shatrina. There's more than one word, believe me. But if there was only one word, it would be persistence. I also want to congratulate you, Tammy, for what you've done with the position at Michael Best Strategies. We are all fortunate that you have a presence there. And congratulations to Michael Best for recognizing your talent and your worth.
Thank you.
And I just want to also, we got two Ohio girls here on screen, but I want to give a shout out to all the Florida girls that are on the screen today.
Yes. Florida.
I gotta plug Mississippi real quick.
After this election, we're not looked at and frowned upon. At least we're not like, what's the holdup?
Well, we're in
Exactly.
good company. I will say this: being with Ohio, we're in good company. We might be stuck together for a long time.
Yep. Exactly.
But as we look to the chief of staffs today, like Charlene, I mean, Char is absolutely phenomenal. She takes time to listen to what everyone says, like Tammy alluded to in the beginning. She's strategic, she's tactical, she knows what she's up against, and she knows how to navigate in the waters and in the bowels of the Congress. So Char, it's nothing but joy to be a sister, to look to you, to be supportive of you, and continue to shine. We're looking forward to you doing some great things in the near future, and we're a phone call away.
I'm just grateful to be in their presence, right? Like, it's nothing like having older sisters who are genuine. I think that's the number one thing. We're in a dog eat dog environment that's so political. Like, I can call Shatrina and say, hey, I need to talk about this subject matter that it may have me in tears, right? Or I may talk to Tammy one day about, hey, how do I cut a deal? Like, how am I persistent about getting what I get? So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've been able to benefit from, is having genuine sisters who are there for me no matter what, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, and that I can just look up to. Like, these are my mentors,
Well, and we can also always, you manage up and down as you go through this process, and you learn a lot both ways. So I think that, when you stop learning, then something is wrong. So we can learn from you as well. And I just want to point out that Stacey and I are in very unique situations, in that both of us are African American women running offices that are led by white members of Congress. And I think it gives us a different and unique perspective, on the Hill. There was always a little club of us, Stacey, about 5 or 6 of us.
Yes.
And I think that for me, it's always been important, and I'm connecting this back to what you were saying, Shar, to make sure that that this office, and it's been important to my boss, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, to make sure that this is an office that promotes diversity and inclusion and gives opportunity to. Now you got to be a Floridian.
Go Florida.
But gives opportunity to young people that are coming to Washington that want to learn what it's like to be on the Hill, to work on the Hill, and to have those experiences. And for me, when we do have young people of all races, but particularly people of color, I try and take the extra time with them to, talk to them and make their experience even more meaningful, because oftentimes, they are here and, they may not have the expenses that some, other the students have, or the resources, I should say, that other students have. So making certain that they get the fullness of this experience. So we've tapped into the CBCF program, we've tapped into the Congressional Hispanic Institutes program to make sure that we can give young people the fullness of the experience here working on the Hill.
No, I think that's an excellent point. When I was on Capitol Hill, Shoshana was one of my mentors. She picked me up and dusted me off and made me into somebody. And I know I've had many of those same experiences with the ladies on this video chat. And I think that really comes down to just your guys' leadership and your ability to not only be so focused on your careers, but care enough to push that forward, right? To pay it forward and to make sure that people coming along have that same radius, right? And they have like that same drive and the same focus, and imparting that knowledge on them. Capitol Hill is a hard place, I mean, the legislative process is not easy. That it's just a bill song is like the tip of the iceberg.
Indeed.
I think Stacey, you have really created an art to managing Democrats, Republicans. We've talked about leadership, and I think you probably more than anyone, right, are thinking about ideologies and what policies, agendas that you're moving forward. And I think many of you ladies on this call have what you call a secret sauce. But I would love to hear just about your experience around recommendations for moving into different environments. What prepares you for an environment? How do you analyze that crowd? How do you understand what you're moving towards from a policy perspective? I imagine that all of you are having to think about that every day, right? Every meeting is different, right? Every policy agenda is different. There's something that happens in the world that you're factoring into your lives, into the lives of your bosses or your companies. So when we think about leveraging that experience and moving from one place to another, what advice would you guys give?
Sure, I'll just start. I think there's some things that just sort of cross party and even industries. One, as a leader, you've got to be hardworking. Eleanor Holmes Norton, at my first chance to meet with her, she said to me, as a CBCF fellow, you don't ever have to be the smartest person in the room, but you've got to be able to outwork everybody. And that is what I've taken. That mantra is what has gotten me through my entire career. Just hard work and just being willing to put everything out there, for my respective bosses. The other thing is integrity. My bosses know that I'm going to give it to them straight. Sometimes that's not pleasant, but I think every politician, every member of Congress should have somebody on their payroll that tells them like it is. Yeah. And that allows them to be a better representative, and it allows me to sleep at night, because I've got to be able to, to come home to my family and say that I was, truthful and honest. And even though I didn't get something my way, but at least I was able to articulate my point of view and my perspective. So I think that's very important. And I'm honored to be at this place in my career when, when that's tolerated. I don't know that Ms. Norton would have tolerated that, but my last 3 bosses certainly have.
And that's integrity. I mean, that's getting to a place where you feel right, like comfortable, but doing the right thing. And I think if you don't have values, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stacy by far is one of the most reasonable, patient leaders I know. I think we all have worked for some very demanding legislators, but throughout it all, Stacy would say, "Take a step back. Let's analyze this. Let's see what we're going to come up with. If we can do it, we can do it. If we can't, we can't. It's just that simple."
Yeah.
And Stacy, I'm gonna be calling you so that I can get the same advice.
Yes,
by the way,
absolutely.
everyone around me is spasmatic all the time, so I need some of your energy.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we do well. I think as African American women, in particular, being able to sort of, bring a sense of calm and peace to the situation. I'm sort of like Stacy. I'm at that point in my career where, I'm real comfortable in my skin and comfortable, and respectfully comfortable letting my boss know, where I think she is, maybe making a move that may not be appropriate or may not be, the best. And then look, she can take my advice or not. Her name is on the door, not mine.
Yeah.
But I know that I've done my part and I've contributed and I've given her, my best advice. And I tell people all the time, when we don't tell our bosses the truth, and we don't lay out for them both sides of a situation and let folks know, this is who's for something, this is who is against it, and here is why. When we don't do that, then we're committing malpractice in the public policy space. And that can be dangerous, especially in the times that we're in. So I'm actually, looking forward to a new, fresh start in 2021, new administration, and some new opportunities for us to be able to move a policy agenda that's more progressive and where we can get more things done for the American people. Hopefully, once we get past this COVID situation.
I have a question for you, or for all of the ladies. You all talked about giving that tough advice to your members and to your bosses. And I'm sure, everyone has had to do that over the course of their career. And that's got to be really tough, right? When I was a member, when I was a young person starting out on Capitol Hill and just in these jobs, like I felt so intimidated, right? I'm sitting in the room with these powerful people, these members of Congress who've been in the office for 20 years, these corporate executives who know what they want. What are the skills that you need to build that confidence so that you can walk into those rooms and feel like you own that room and feel like you can give your boss that tough feedback? And to your point again, leading in that way. How do you develop that skill set? What do you do to get there? What do you arm yourself with?
Information and facts. And I often tell the staff in my office, and this is, what I teach my own child, you have to know what you don't know. And, the worst thing you can do as a staffer is give a member a response or advice or an answer, and you're not certain of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so to get to a place where you have confidence, being able to, share your thoughts and whatever your analysis is, you have to build that trust, and you build that trust through your performance. You build that trust by making sure that your boss knows that you're going to do your homework, you're going to check every box. And if you don't know, then you will make certain that you know, get the answers that they need. But trying to be the first person with the answer and, in the room where it happens all the time, that's not necessarily, the best approach, and at least not in my office. preparation is key, and acknowledgement that, you know, I've got more work to do. There are a lot of times, even now, that I will say to my boss, we're just not ready to present this to you yet. I know we had a deadline. I know we had expectations. You know, things move really quickly on the Hill, but it's got to be, you know, it's got to be right, you know, so we need a little bit more time. And so I think preparation and honesty are really, really key.
That's so important.
And just to jump in behind Tracy, and they made this opportunity for me because I didn't have the opportunity to make a time on Capitol Hill because I started as a lobbyist so early. But along with the path that Tracy just laid out, I think knowing the right avenues and the right pathway to go through in order to find that information is so critical. And it's beyond just having a network. It's beyond that. It's about really understanding the process. And the good thing about having people like Tracy and Char and Stacy in place and Katrina, when she was on the Hill, if you didn't know, they helped figure it out for me. And I know they did that amongst each other. So many of us, even if we are lobbyists and we're coming with a lot of knowledge, understanding of our particular issue, you can't cut through that. Sometimes we need a pathway. And it's great to have people on the Hill, like the women that I'm seeing right now, that help create that pathway for you. Because there's plenty of times, Stacey, you remember, you know, I can be going in totally the wrong direction on things. Remember, and you were like, Tammy, why don't you try it this way? You know, so my success factor depended on people like you being in place, and that, I mean, it reaped volumes for me. And I wasn't hesitant to go and knock on those doors. If not, you knocked on mine, knowing that I was working an issue. And Char, you just did this recently, knowing about a new client. You like, Tammy, are you looking at it this way? And sometimes it's just refreshing to have that, even if I don't seek it out. You're doing it in the best interest of you and your member. And I just think that is an added dose. When you mentioned earlier, Dr. Thompson, that sweet sauce, I think that is something that's a great little sprinkle on top of that, is, you know, having that network that gives you the pathway to take your knowledge expertise to the proper way. Because like you said, that song on how a bill becomes a law is just a song.
I mean, I was going to add also, because Tammy said, but one thing that I've learned from these ladies is always have a recommendation. Yeah. And so I think that that's part of having that confidence that Tracy talked about, right? It's like, if I do my research and I prep, like Shatrina said, if I talk to Tammy, if I talk to Stacy, then I'm empowered to give this recommendation and say, hey, Congresswoman, I'm being 110% transparent with you. Here are, you know, point A, point B. This person may think this, that person may think this, but I think the best avenue for you to take is X, Y, and Z. So I think having ladies like this around me who are good mentors to help me build that confidence and make that recommendation has made me a better staffer.
I guess that's why you're top 40 out of 40 for the National Bar Association, huh?
Because I have them.
And you know, I think a lot of people outside of Washington, D.C. are unaware of what a chief of staff responsibility is. Is Tracy alluded to, and Tammy and everyone alluded to, you know, being resourceful. Find a way out of no way. These members of Congress don't accept no. That's not even acceptable in our vocabulary. My number 2 mentor was Judy Schneider. All of us remember Judy Schneider. Yes. Understanding the parliamentarian process, understanding the legislative process, understanding how to weigh the pros and cons, because everyone is not going to be happy with your decision. But what's most important are your members' constituents. At the end of the day, you're in leadership roles, you're on these committees, you're with these parties, but we must represent the voice of the constituents. And you have to stand your ground at times, you know, and you need to take that initiative to sit down to your leadership and respectfully let them know you may not be able to step out there and agree with them. because it's impacting your district. But we're managing the press. We're managing the communications of what happens with, to me, it was always a problem if CNN and Fox News knew more than us. If I'm relying on Fox News and CNN to tell my member what's happening, that's problematic. So the research is critical. Being ahead of the curve and under having those relationships. I mean, Stacy, Tracy, Tammy, you all remember we're dating ourselves, but we've worked for delegations where we understood overall what our delegations wanted. We worked across the aisle. It was very different than today, but
right.
we had respect for one another, because at the end of the day, we all needed to take care of our constituent bodies. And that's what's so special about this group. And Char, you're able to witness this and working with us. And our hope, the new chief of staffs, we didn't have time years ago to be a part of the lights, camera, and the action. We were busy working. I believe I was in boot camp for Louis Stokes. I mean, so I had to study accounts, understand appropriations, know how to look at a map and detect, is this U.S. Corps of Engineers? Where do we pull funds from? Programmatic status, how, authorization. I mean, I was tested every day. But nowadays, a lot has changed. And again, I don't move without having the facts, and I don't step out there without the facts. And I'm honest with all the members in which I've had that expected us to be able to part the Red Sea and would just say, as Tracy said, we're not prepared at this time.
Right. That is so important.
Sharina, I think that, and I'm hopeful that we will move back just as a society and a culture to a place where we view politics and public policy in particular, because in these offices, in these halls, we do public policy. It's a political body, obviously. But I think I'm hopeful that we'll move back to where it's seen as really a true public good. I like to think that, we're in the customer service business at the end of the day. That's really, number one part of our job is to make sure, at least as it relates to my boss, the constituents in the 23rd District of Florida, their needs are met, and that we're able to assist them and service them, and make sure that they have the access to the full, resources available to them in the federal government. But I do think that given, the tenor of our public discourse over, not just these past 4 years, which I believe, it's been horrific, but I think it's been building up. It's been building up over time. I can remember when I worked in the Florida legislature, in the early 90s, and you were, beginning to see, some of it at that time. And that wasn't the case, in the generations that came before us. And, President Kennedy called on all Americans to, be of service, and people wanted to come and wanted to be a part of working for, the federal government and making a contribution. And if they wanted to leave later and go out and make a whole lot of money, that's fine too. But I just don't think public service is viewed in that way anymore. And so therefore the time that people put in to really learn and shape their craft, and I've met some of the most brilliant people that I've ever known in my life by working on Capitol Hill. But they, for many reasons, they don't stay, and they don't have, and younger people may not, feel as if they can't afford it, or, it is one of those situations where they just want to check that box and move on to the next thing. So we have to work hard to make sure people know and feel like this is a great place to be, a great place to work, and you can make a difference, and you can help people, make their lives, better. And I think that we have to get back to that. And so some of that will hopefully come as we become more unified as a nation.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Tracy. I think just in your discussion about, why you're there, what you're there to do. But I think a lot of times we see you guys as chiefs of staff who've made it, right? You've been through so much, but like help us just, can you define, someone on the call, but like, what does the chief of staff do? Like, why is this position so important to Congress, and why should people strive for that role? And I think, Tammy, you'd be great to follow up with just, how do you work with the chiefs of staff, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about what makes a great chief.
I think everything that I know, Shashrina taught me. So I think she would be the perfect person, because when it was coming down to my decision of if I even thought I was capable of being a chief of staff, she pumped all of that confidence in me. So I think she's a perfect person for that question.
You're not going to put me out there like that when we have
and Stacey and Tracy, but I'm just saying for me, so I don't have to answer. She pumped everything.
There is no chief of staff, course in college, right? Like there's no training. I think Shashrina will say, and Tracy will agree with me. You're just kind of thrown into it, yes. Right? I mean, my first chief of staff was the queen of chiefs of staff, Donna Brazil.
Wow.
And
you get better than that.
What's that?
Right there.
Can I just touch you, Stacey?
Yeah. So my first experience on Capitol Hill was sitting in the lobby and hearing Donna Brazil just torture some poor reporter from the Washington Post. And I had no idea what any of this was, but I remember sitting in that reception area and thinking to myself, whatever she is, I want to be that. And I had no idea really, what that was, but I just knew I wanted to be whatever Donna was, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I sort of feel the same way now. I mean, I've been a chief to 3 members of Congress, and I hope this current one is my last one, but I've said that.
No, we need you.
Yes.
Good match.
It's Donna used to say that if you are driving or walking and you can see the dome of the Capitol on your way to work, and you don't get a little bit excited or have a little bit of pride, then you're just not in the right profession. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I have used that as my gauge, all of these years. It'd be 20 years in a few years. So, a chief of staff makes the trains run on time. A chief of staff is sometimes the last person in the room before the member walks out the door to vote. A chief of staff is the members. I remember when I first started working for Mike Turner, he used to say that I was his Condoleezza Rice, his Karen. There was some Bush White House staffer.
Oh yeah,
all of those women at the same time, and that's tough to be. It's tough to be, but as a chief, you're kind of your boss's, whatever they need at that moment, whether it's, just your thoughts about what's on the floor versus, it's just everything, and it's a job where the weight of it is at times heavy.
Yeah.
So, everybody wants to be a chief, but I can tell you, having done this 3 times already, you better be sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
a huge commitment, because you have a responsibility to someone's brand, so to speak. And mm-hmm. also at least for me, when I first became Debbie's chief, I've only worked for 2 women on the Hill. I worked for now Speaker Pelosi when she was minority leader the first time, and that was my first job on Capitol Hill. And then, like I said earlier, I'm a Floridian, and so when Debbie Wasserman Schultz became a member of Congress, um, I I knew her from the Florida legislature. We had worked together. We had been staff together. I never worked with her directly, but Debbie's the only other member I've ever worked with, and she'll be the last. um,
You
but
guys heard that, right?
Yeah, we heard that.
but when I was 35 years old when I came to work with Debbie, and I left for a while and went to Ohio, Stacy, and but when I came back to DC, I came back to this role, and so I'm saying that to say that for me, it's also a relationship. At the end of the day, it's you spend more time with these people than often than you spend with your own family. So
Yeah.
you get to know them very well, and you if you have any humanity about you, you care. You
Right.
care about them and what happens to them. At least that is how I was raised, and that's the sort of cloth that I'm cut from. So there is a connectiveness that when you may see them going down a path, and you're like, oh, don't do that. But at the same time, I have to make sure that I compartmentalize that I am her chief first. I'm not her friend. I'm not her. I mean, I am her friend, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I
Yeah.
am chief first and foremost. And so it is not my job to be her girlfriend or, someone that, goes out and hangs out, or, I don't want to hurt her feelings and I don't want to say this. And so when you understand the level of the relationship, and you can work for a member a long time, and it in the case of Debbie and I, she's only a couple of years older than me, so it's almost like a sisterhood. But for me, at the end of the day, she is the member all the time. Even when we are socially interacting, she is the member all the time. And I think that a chief has to recognize that, because you run the gamut of experiences that you'll deal with. All chiefs are not created equal. I mean, they're, you know, different roles that they play depending on the member, depending on the structure of the office. So it really depends. But as Stacy said, you don't sort of get a handbook on, like, this is how you are, a chief of staff, or this is, what you have to do. A lot of things you learn and you grow over time. But what goes back to what we were all talking about earlier, having that integrity, being a strong leader is important too, because you have to be able to display leadership. And there are times when you have to manage up and down, as I said before. And so that's important, because you also have to be able to be a voice for your staff, and sometimes you have to be able to be a voice for your members,
Right.
the rest of the
Right.
staff.
Right.
So it just it requires a lot of different skills that, unfortunately, you know um, they don't train you for.
Right. And I would jump in here and say, um, a lot of the success has to do with great mentors. With I think I worked for some of our outstanding members since Reconstruction. I was the last hire by the Honorable Louis Stokes, God bless his soul. Being trained by the congressman and other members of Congress, knew his reputation and understood, if you were trained by Congressman Stokes, you understood, number one, the appropriations process, and you understood the legislative process. Um, Leaving Mr. Stokes, working with Congresswoman Carrie Meek from Florida, working with the Honorable Stephanie Tubbs Jones, God bless her soul,
Yeah.
and the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee. So, but it was Louis Stokes that taught me the process, where I was then able to work with Ms. Jackson Lee and help members understand the process. And what a lot of young staffers are unaware of, members are not looking for young people to figure it out. They're looking for advisors they're looking for individuals who can actually advise them and be what Tracy alluded to, honest. Can we work across the aisle to find the right type of language to get this bill passed in the House? Can we gather bicameral support? And can we get this signed by the president before a lame duck session? That's what members want. And you have to understand how to navigate, but it had taken me years to master that, because with a new Congress, new leadership, there are new dynamics. There are new dynamics at play. And you have to understand what those dynamics are and understand what members are you working with from, they might have their own agenda. And does your member's agenda align with their agenda? Some members want your member to be a team player. It's your job to make things right. And, like Tracy said, you must be the first one to show up, and sometimes you're the last one. So, it's a daunting task, but you got to feel it. You have to want to be in the moment to be there to make sure your boss, your member, is a success. And that's what it boils down to. A great chief of staff makes sure their member is successful.
Shishreen, I just want to add really quickly that in order for you to be able to do that, and this is sort of bringing it back full circle as African-American women, you have to be whole. And you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. A lot of times, and particularly as Black women, we give everything. And then we have nothing left for ourselves or our family. And in order to be, fully balanced, and it's something that I've learned in this role over time. When I started working with Debbie, I wasn't married. I didn't have children. And now I'm married and I have a child. So it's really important that we find a balance. I'm not, suggesting that I've always found it. I've struggled with it. I still, I often struggle with it to this day, but it's important that we do that we stay healthy, that we're whole, that we take care of ourselves, because there are a lot of highs and lows in these roles. For instance, even with Tammy and all, with COVID, not so much, but prior to COVID, being, a lobbyist and going from, this event to that event, it takes, a toll. And so finding that right balance, finding whatever it is that gets you back to your center, whether it's prayer or meditation or, something legal that you do to make sure that you stay, centered. It's important, because unless you can bring your best self to this role, you won't be effective.
Well, no, those were super powerful words, Tracy, Shishrina, Char, Stacey. We have Congresswoman Pressley joining us.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone.
We are. You look fabulous.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Hello, y'all are if that is true at all, I'm just a reflection of you. So it is so good to be with all of you, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm sorry I've been missing out on all of this. I'm just coming out of a media interview about a piece of legislation. But what did I miss? Catch me up.
We're talking about how wonderful you landed in Washington, and that it's the support of you on and off the Hill is just amazing. So happy you're here, and happy you're staying. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
We're singing your praises, and we're just talking about collaboration, what you do best.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
talking about being centered in this and whole in this crazy environment that we work in every day.
Right.
And working across the aisle and being able to embrace one another off of television, understanding that we have to work together as sisters to find common ground, and having the years of experience on the Hill, as you started many years ago, having that great expertise and the blessing of working for U.S. Senator Kerry, and have blossomed to go back to the district, represent your constituents, return as a power broker, right? Representing us.
Blazing trails and having the confidence to do it.
Right.
Again, I could say all of that to each of you as well. And Shoshana, just thank you for this convening. I think it's so important because, I find very often we are only coming together to sort of trauma bond. And I think it's important that, our bonds of community are not only forged in trauma and hardship and in the work, but in doing that intentional work of fostering sisterhood, which certainly has emboldened me in my walk to move with self-agency, to move with self-determination. And then the people that you just intentionally inform joy with. I think, as Black folk, as Black women, we get so many messages about the armor that we need to put on with which to negotiate this world, to navigate under the weight of racism and sexism, how to manage microaggressions in hostile spaces. But what I want to challenge us to do is to be, as much space as we hold for our righteous rage, and as much space as we hold for the bold work that we need to do in response to the gravity of our challenges, that we also hold bold space that's radical in our joy and in our healing and in our sisterhood, and that we are unapologetic about that. And so this table affords us that opportunity. And for that, I'm grateful. And just a note of personal privilege, I just want to say when I did my alopecia reveal, oh gosh, I don't want to get emotional about it. I received an outpouring of support from Black staffers, from Black women on the Hill, from alumni from the Hill. And it really is a testament to the fact that not only are we one, human family and connected, but having been in these rarefied spaces together, that there is this bond. Even I received letters from people that have never spoken to me. I mean, we were in similar spaces, but life was just moving fast, and they reached out to offer support. And I just wanted to just say thank you to everyone who poured into me during what was a very challenging moment.
Oh gosh. And thank you for your courage.
Yeah.
So much. That has empowered so many women across the globe that you have no idea how many lives you've touched.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But having the bravery to step out and being upfront and honest with a number of issues that women face, and we never talk about it. We cover it up. We hide it. You're giving us hope to let us know, pull the hair back,
right?
Take it off if you need to, and step out here, and love life.
Well, absolutely. You don't. As my husband reminds me, I don't need hair to rock a crown.
Yes,
that's right. Rocking a crown, and it's so apropos that we've come together this week because 2 days ago they had me interview John Kerry for a fireside chat.
No way.
Yeah, it was just such a full circle moment, and that part of your brain as an aide really never turns off. And it's been something, the hardest transition for me from being an aide to being a city councilor and then in Congress is one, to not be my own aide. But just the space and how incredible it is to not just work for people who share your values, but to amplify your own.
Yes.
And to find your own voice and to take up space in that way.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you balance having been a staff person on the Hill with now being a member? Because obviously, you're the member and your name's on the door. But I do think that at times, I think members that have been staff make the best members, by the way.
Yes.
And there's so many lessons that we've learned and things
they
that
also
you
ask the toughest question. I work for a member now who was a former staffer. So how do you balance that in terms of sort of the role you're in now versus, having been a former staffer?
Well, I think first and foremost, something that I'm always telling people is that the public and constituents and and other stakeholders are often looking for time with the member, but they really underestimate the power of those around the member. But because I've been an aide, I know that power. and that, you know, there's power in being the person behind the person, right? And so I wanted to be intentional about who those people would be, because I want them to be accessible and responsive. I want them to be proactive, because my mantra is that people closest to the pain should be closest to the power, driving and informing the policymaking. So I really wanted to create a culture of cooperative governing. And I needed people that shared that commitment and those values. And that people who, when I'm not in the room and they're in there for me, that I know they're really representing me. You know, my point of view, my values. And so the other thing is, having been an aide, it was really important to me to not have a culture that is where one's morale can really be undermined, right? And so I'm just very intentional about, you know, thanking staff for everything, you know, for a memo, for research, for being kind, for a constituent commenting about them in an email. And then not having this, I think Hill culture can be competitively abusive. It's sort of like you're in a competition for who can be the most personally abusive and negligent. You know, well, my grandmother died, but I'm still here, and I got all my molars taken out, but I'm still here. We had to lay my cat down, but I'm still here. I did not want to create a culture where people were competing for that. I want marriages to stay together. You know, I wanted this to be an environment where we destigmatize mental health. And so my aides, we carve that time out. They can say, I can't take that constituent meeting because I'm going to therapy. You know, so I've made very intentional choices about who I hired and the culture that I fostered for that reason. Now, the point I'll end on here, where that has sometimes the challenge has been that I'm so mindful of staff and what that can feel like, that I'm my own staff. And then people can feel like you're micromanaging or you don't have confidence in them, right? And then the other thing is, sometimes I was afraid to ask for what I really needed as a principal, because I was so mindful of being a Black woman and not wanting anyone to think I was being a diva. But these were not diva requests. It's okay for me to ask for what I need in order to be my best self and to be the best servant leader possible.
Absolutely. You have to ask for what you need and not be ashamed to do that, and build a team, to your point, around you that can help you make those decisions and think quickly on your feet, and to support you. I think the reason we've been here for the last, almost 45 minutes is to really talk about how women are shattering glass ceilings in every arena, right? On Capitol Hill, in corporate America. You've done that. You've been a trailblazer and a leader, and we thank you for all that you've done. But I want to just hear from you about, words of encouragement. What do you think women should be thinking about in this day and age? We're in unprecedented times, and we are trying to continue to break those glass ceilings and continue the hard work that you and the other panelists are doing. But what words do you have for us going forward? How do you see us shaping the future?
So look, I grew up in being raised by a single mom who taught me two things that I carry with me every day. The first is that in life, there's a difference between your job and your work. For most people, your job is what pays the bills, and then your work, with a capital W, is the work of the upliftment and the advancement of community. We're very fortunate in that we can say that our job and our work are one and the same. The other thing is that she told me that it was beautiful to be Black and I should be proud to be Black, but that I was being born into a struggle. And she had an expectation that I would do my part in that struggle. And so that has not waned for me. My mother didn't read me traditional bedtime stories as a child. She read me the speeches of Barbara Jordan and Shirley Chisholm. And so it's very full circle that my 1108 Longworth office actually used to be Shirley Chisholm's office. It was her first office. And so all these sort of, surreal full circle moments in this way. And so what I would just, offer to my sisters is to be unapologetic. That is my favorite Shirley Chisholm quote. When asked about her legacy, how did she want to be remembered? She said she simply wanted to be remembered as a Black woman who dared to be herself. And so who have we been? We have been the table shakers. We have been the truth tellers. We have been the justice seekers. We have been the preservers of democracy, as evidenced by the role that we played in organizing and mobilizing on the ground, as evidenced by the role that we play on the ballot in Kamala Harris and even my own race, and as evidenced by the role that we play at the ballot box, and that we have still been the most reliable voting constituency, for the Democratic Party and the most engaged. And so I would just encourage folks to be emboldened. You are worthy. Take up space, but also create space at the same time. I think, what I'm focused on every day squarely is just legislating my values and doing anything that will get us to the full liberation and emancipation of Black folks. So just know that you are powerful, you are limitless, that your contributions to this world are brilliant and needed and uniquely yours. Your ideas are substantive, your lived experiences, your kind heart belong at every table. We belong everywhere. Decisions are being made. And just know that you are not defined, by your productivity or your chosen work. That I value you not just for the utility for what you can contribute, but just for how you show up in the world exactly as you are. And so just know that who you are is always enough. And that rolls off my tongue easily now at the ripe old age of 46. But that was certainly not a mindset that I was inhabiting when I was in my 20s and working on the Hill.
Wow. That's so powerful. I'm ready to run through a brick wall right now.
Needed this.
Some bad mamma jammas. You didn't know that? You really needed me to tell you that?
Sometimes, Congresswoman, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your wise words, your words of encouragement. I'm going to start taking up space in every single place that I'm in. But I also want to thank these wonderful panelists for joining us today and everyone that tuned in and sent in your questions. We value you. We thank you. We're so happy that we could be with you today. And I know that you took some powerful words from these amazing women. And I just want to thank you all. You're beautiful. You're amazing. Continue to do the work. Continue to conquer the world.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Let's do it again. I'll be on time next time. Okay.
You're doing the work.
Yes.
I was a scheduler, but I can't keep me on time. That's the irony of all of this, But,
Dr. Thomas, can I do a real quick shout out?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to a group of amazing corporate lobbyists, advocates, trailblazers that's led by Nicole Venable. There's a lot of us. I used to be able to name us on hand with two hands. It's too many to name. It's a group that has formed, led by Nicole, that makes sure we stay plugged in, make sure we collaborate. And it became so seamless, but we needed a leader, and she is the trailblazer. So when you're talking about being at the table, there's a group of people that are so happy that you allowed a person like me on this panel to represent those off the Hill, because government affairs matter. And shout out to Black Girls Magic.
Yes.
Which we're all members. We're members. And Congresswoman, I just want you to know, each and every one of us on this Red and Blue Table Talk, we are available to you and your staff. We're a phone call away.
Yeah, I'm going to send you my resume after this.
Somebody invite me out for a mimosa or to worship or something.
Yes.
All be about the struggle.
That has to be the next talk, because we were just getting ready to go there when you joined the call about the self-care that you have to, make sure that you implement in order to stay sane in this environment and just in the world.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I've been, this is a freshman orientation week for the 117th Congress. Mm-hmm. And so I've been having so many conversations with them. And I was actually just working on like a little, I won't name the name, but, one of them was offering, someone said we should go to this soul food restaurant, Ben's Chili Bowl. Have you ever heard of it? And I said, well, of course it's famous, right? And so I said, I need to make a little guidebook. And I know it's ironic coming from me because, now my alopecia has me bald, but I want people to know where they can get their hair done. All these things that I didn't know, coming to the Hill that makes such a difference, and sort of feeling rooted and finding community and, making a life here outside of all of the very rewarding work that we each do. So.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And thank you for putting this together, Shishrina. And
no, thank you all.
It's been amazing.
I'm so grateful that Congresswoman Pressley took time out. You know, I'm so excited to say I met her when I started with Louis Stokes. Together with our mutual friends, and shout out to Trelon Shorter and
yes, that's
yes.
We all cut our teeth. We grew up together. But Katrina, what I want to say about you is there's an adage that the most important person in the room is the one that can get everyone in the same room. And you do that. You do that time and time again. And so we thank you for that, because to be a convener is a gift. And so thank you for doing that over and over.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for the moderating, Dr. Thomas. Great job.
Yes, thank you.